I'm not going to keep doing it. You know what I mean? If it's, you know what I mean? If it's going to be like this,
Mm,
I mean,
mm.
I want to do it. I love doing it. You know what I mean? I love what I do. It's a lot of fun. But again, I guess that biggest, question is how, like, how do
Yeah.
we make these processes?
So good question. And I'll answer it in I'll answer it through showing what I would suggest. So that's sort
Yeah.
of probably the easiest way to explain it. So there is a more desired path to this, and it's very common that a lot of our clients, before they come to us, is that they don't have time to create processes. They also haven't really ever created any processes to as well, right? So in knowing that, what we should be doing then is we take your scenario here. I would be first looking at, okay, well, before we start creating anything new, we should look at first optimizing everything you have, in the sense that, there's probably a lot of time that might not be used correctly, either on tasks being handled twice or communication overlaps or things that aren't being completed right. I would also suggest this from your team, right, as well. So before we create anything new, we always look at, of course, optimizing ourselves, the team, and the actual company. This usually creates about 3 to 4 hours free per week for each team member. So in that, we're trying to make your life easy before we start creating anything new. So that is usually going to, for example, free up on average for like most of our clients 3 to 4 hours per week. We do have some clients who are, what's the term? Who are chaotic, I guess, in the sense that they're doing
Yeah.
everything across all duties and all tasks, and they are doing great from a growth point of view. Except they're very underslept and very overworked and all of that. So in those extreme scenarios, we can certainly free up almost a whole day just through recycling and rescheduling and grouping and all of these small little internal optimization, I guess, tricks and processes, right, as well.
Right.
So we should, of course, be able to free up that time for you. Now, in that, after we had that time freed up, of course, I would be suggesting that we use that time to create your first initial processes too as well. Now, a lot of the time, companies try to look at starting, and this is kind of another example. If we think about process design as a whole, a lot of companies try to start creating processes around the most urgent, the most important jobs first, right? Because that kind of makes sense, like you've got all these important duties and they're quite urgent. So let's create processes around those so that your team can handle them, right? The problem in that is that these processes are usually quite long and they're quite complex. So they
Mhm.
are extremely hard to create properly from the start, and they take ages to actually create. So there's no initial time return on that, and they don't really get created completely too as well. So
Mhm.
instead, when we're looking at creating the initial processes, we like to take the other approach, and that is usually the most shortest, the most recurring, right? And the reason behind this is that it's typically not common that you or I would lose a whole day in doing a single duty. It's usually like a few emails here, phone conversations here, right? Going to this place, coming back. It's usually these small 10 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour jobs, right? So in knowing that, something we should be doing is trying to start with the most shortest and recurring processes, because they are fast to build and they give us a recurring ROI on our time that then we can see compound week after week. So when I'm saying the most shortest and most recurring, those should be the ones that we create at the start of this journey for you. So in knowing that, we would be creating in the most shortest and most recurring, as I said, and that would be the initial processes that then we create. From there, I would hand those off to a new team member, right? If that be team member 2 or maybe your current hire, right? But I would probably just a new hire for that. If that be a contractor or someone part-time, of course, I would then hand those off to the new team member. From there, you've got the option of either looking at 2 different types of processes. You can then look at your more responsive processes. So these are like your problems, complaints, things that aren't going to plan that you need to respond to on the fly. Or you can look at creating your more proactive processes. So these are like your sales campaigns, ad campaigns, hiring plans, things that grow the actual company too as well. There's no right or wrong answer here because each of these are things that should be created. It's more typically common to see clients go towards a more responsive process because then they have the time and space to be more proactive, right? So from there, we then would probably create a team of another 2, maybe someone on the admin, someone on the customer support, right, to then handle anything that is not going to plan. And then from there, you then would have the extra free time to then do your more proactive too as well. So to answer your question about the time, it's not that we need time to start on this journey because the sort of time is then created as we begin creating the processes, right? So I can understand that it feels very intimidating and like this huge project. Although if we start at the most shortest and most recurring, things get easier over time as well. And on that note, if we think about process design as a whole, the sort of end goal of any process is looking to either correct a problem or, let's say, complete a task, right? Now, if we know this to be true, then we should only be creating processes if there is a problem or if there's something that's uncertain to the team, right? So in some scenarios, companies assume that they need to create every single process for every single duty for every single team member. This is a huge undertaking, and I don't think it's very helpful. Instead, if we come up to this example here, we should only be creating processes around problems, questions, uncertainties.
Okay.
Yeah, right. So there's probably a lot that your team can handle now because you just train them up over time. I would not build processes on those yet. I would build the processes that then try to make your team's life easy or your job easier too as well. So pretty much if it's okay, if it's correct, I would not create a process around that. If it's unpredictable, if it's something you want to remove from yourself, I would be creating processes around that instead. So it's not that we're trying to aim for every single process. We are trying to look at the problems, look at the wrong duties that maybe you're handling and that you should be handing off to your team, right? So that kind of shrinks down the scope from every single process to only the ones that you need. And then we can shrink it down even more in terms of, okay, well, we should be starting out on the most shortest and most recurring first. So does that make it less less scary, I guess? Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
No, yeah, it's cool. I like it. And I did actually totally forget about that